Good afternoon, world of Facebook. How are you, beautiful soul? Dr. Michelle Hammersley here, live from Norfolk, sunny Norfolk. So I just want to start by asking, have you ever been bullied or been around negative people trying to say things that just try and bring you down, try and make you feel like shit? I mean, I was just watching a live a little while ago, actually, of one of my Facebook friends, and her partner seemed to say the most horrendous things to her, and it makes me wonder why the fuck do we stay in those kind of situations? Why the fuck? And a lot of it is down to low or no self-worth, because when we have a healthy sense of self-worth, it works kind of like in a double-edged sword. It's kind of like a paradox. When we have a healthy sense of self-worth, not only do we not tolerate that kind of behavior, we're also less likely to attract it. Because when we have low self-worth, no self-esteem, we're vibrating at a lower level and we seem to attract more negativity. And someone asked me yesterday when I was doing a live, how do I deal with negative people? How do I deal with negativity? And I did mention a bit of it yesterday, but I want to talk about it a bit more today, because I'm seeing, especially women, staying in situations where it's destroying what little self-worth they have. And and it saddens me and it pisses me off. It pisses me off that people stay in those kind of situations, but I also understand it because I've been there, I've done it. I mean, I was teased at school, teased at primary school daily about my nose. Kids would call me Concord and Manilow, and they would pretend to duck when I turn around. And it's horrible. You have that kind of sinking feeling that you just want the ground to open up and swallow you, and it's absolutely shit. But I've learned so much. There's so much I wish I knew then that I know now, because there are ways that you can protect yourself. There are ways that you can kind of avoid these kind of situations, and there are ways that you can deal with these situations. The most empowering thing I've ever learnt, and if you take nothing else away from this live, get this into your mind, write it down on a piece of paper somewhere, because this will change your perception. And that is simply, people only say negative things to or about you due to their own insecurities, due to their own pain, their own wounds, their own fears, their own shit, basically. Write it down. People only say negative things to or about you due to their own crap that's going on. Because no happy, healthy, and when I say healthy, I mean emotionally, physically, spiritually, person wants to make someone else feel like shit. It's as simple as that. I have no intention, need, desire to make someone else feel like crap. The times I have wanted to, it's been because I've been hurting. Simple as that. Like, since splitting up with my husband, there's been times I've wanted to lash out and say something hurtful, but that is because I was hurting, which exactly goes to prove what I said, that people only say negative things to or about you due to their own insecurities, their own fears, their own pain, their own shit that they're going through. It's as simple as that. And once you can really get that, and I mean really get that, then things that people say don't tend to bother you so much. It becomes more like water off a duck's back, because it's not always about you. It's very rarely about you. And that person who is being horrible to you, whether they're saying something to you or about you, they're not happy. Because if they were busy loving their life, they wouldn't have time to be horrible to or about you. It's as simple as that. But I know as well that when you're in that vulnerable place and people are saying things, it's hard to think clearly. There are times when we are in a low vibe that we struggle to think clearly and to react in a way that we would otherwise. And that's the thing. It's kind of a paradox. When you're feeling depressed or stressed, you are more likely to attract negativity. You are more likely to attract. It's like what's those birds? Vultures. Vultures can like smell a dead body from miles away. They are circling around before the animal has even died. And energy vampires, toxic people, they can smell you a mile away. So when you're going through depression, or when you're not on your top of your game, you are more likely to attract negativity, because those people who are feeling insecure, those energy vampires who are feeling insecure, they are like those vultures circling around, and they can sense your vulnerability, and it's like they need to feed off you to make themselves feel better. And that is a kind of paradox, that when we're at our most vulnerable and less able to deal with things logically and, intelligently, that is when people swoop in and pick on our insecurities and say horrible things, and it really kicks us in the gut. But if you just write it on a piece of paper, people only say negative things to or about you due to their own insecurities, their own fears, their own hurts, their own pain, their own worries. It's not about you. The other thing is to remember that no one, and I mean no one, can make you feel anything. No one can hurt you, can make you angry, can make you upset, can offend you, can piss you off, can stress you out. Anything. No one can make you feel anything. You might think, yeah, but so-and-so said X, Y, Z. Yeah, but they cannot make you feel a certain way. I can't say, right, you are now angry. You are now stressed. You are now happy. Someone can say something that is really hurtful, really painful, but we have the choice to respond to it. And I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not easy, especially if you're feeling vulnerable, if you're feeling low and those vultures, those energy vampires are smelling your blood and they're coming in like ticks or something and leeching onto you. It's not that easy to remember that we can own our own emotions, especially if they're feeding into our own insecurities. If they're saying things like, if I was going through a vulnerable stage and someone said something about my nose, I would be more susceptible to letting it affect me. Whereas when I'm in a positive, high vibe state, if someone says something about my nose, like, oh, you've got a big nose, I'll be like, well, yeah, you've got good eyesight. Well done. But we're not always able to do that when we're feeling depressed, when we're feeling stressed. And that, as I say, is when we're feeling most, that is when we're most vulnerable, and those vultures, they can kind of smell it a while away. But if we try and remember, it's not always about you. Everyone has their own fears, their own hurts, their own insecurities, their own worries, their own pain, their own trauma, their own limiting beliefs. And often, as I say, hurt people hurt people. It's one of those cliches, but cliches are cliches because they're true. People who are hurting hurt other people. And like I said a minute ago, when I first split up with my husband, there were times I wanted to say something hurtful because I was hurting and I wanted to make him feel pain. Luckily, I am self-aware enough now to not just lash out straight away. I can pause a minute before I say something, or I send a message, because I know that it's my pain. I want to hurt him because I'm hurting. So we can remind ourselves that if someone is being negative, if someone is being horrible, that we always have a choice. We always have a choice whether we allow ourselves to get upset, whether we allow ourselves to be offended, because offense can only be taken, it can't be given, because someone can say something and 10 people, 5 of them will say, I'm offended, and the other 5 will not be, because it's your own personal perception. But no one has the power to make you feel anything. But that is kind of quite difficult if you're in a situation, say with a family member or something, who is kind of like bringing you down, is a kind of like energy vampire. It's not always so easy. There are things that you can do to protect yourself, and I kind of go into those in a minute. But the other thing as well is, quite often people will say something and will react, and it's because of our shadow. If you react strongly to something, like if you get angry or upset, it's often a part of you that needs healing. So someone may say something and there's a part of you that is wondering whether it's the truth. A part of you is kind of like doubting yourself. Or sometimes we'll react strongly to someone because they reflect a part of us that needs healing. They may have a habit or characteristic that we have that we don't like in ourselves. So a while ago, I sometimes used to get annoyed when I was teaching my yoga. I used to get annoyed with people who weren't putting enough effort in. And I was thinking, why are they so lazy? And I was trying to think, why am I so bothered? Why am I bothered that if they're not putting effort in? It's totally up to them. And so I dug a little bit deeper, and I realised that the days when I was getting annoyed because, in my opinion, people were being lazy, was when I was being lazy. When I wasn't getting off my mat and adjusting them. But I wasn't at my best. But instead of looking at myself, I was taking it out on, not taking it out, it was only my mind, but I was projecting my annoyance with myself onto other people. So sometimes there may be occasions when someone is being negative and a part of us reacts strongly because we know there's like a grain of truth in it and we don't want to look at it. And that's hard. Shadow work is hard. Shadow work takes a lot of guts, a lot of bravery to look at yourself and say, actually, yeah, they're right, actually. I don't want to admit it, but they're fucking right. It's like when I say you can resent admire someone. And by resent admire, I mean someone who you initially feel resentment towards, but actually there's something about them that you could admire. A perfect example of this, a while ago, I was reading a magazine, and it was this woman, I don't know who she was, but she was supposed to be presenting the new blind date. And she was talking about how she was the perfect person for the job. No one else could do it, blah, blah, blah. And my initial reaction was, fuck, she's up herself, isn't she? But because I've done a lot of shadow work, I was instantly able to think, okay, why am I reacting so strongly? Why has that really pissed me off? Because I don't know this person. Why has it pissed me off? And I realised almost straight away, it's because she had such conviction, such utter confidence in herself. And I wanted that conviction. I wanted to feel as confident and have as utter self-belief as she had. But that's the thing, we often get pissed off at someone and it's actually a case of there's something about them that we could or do admire, we just don't want to admit it. It's like when we see someone walking down the street and think, oh, they shouldn't really be wearing that, should they? Where actually there's a part of us that would love to have the confidence to wear whatever they're wearing. So there's kind of like two sides to it. Sometimes if you react strongly, is there a grain of truth in it? Is there something that you don't want to look at? Kind of example is, say you're really overweight and it's affecting your health. Someone says something about it. You react more strongly because there's a part of you that knows it's affecting your health. But it's hard to own up to it. It's hard to do something about it. So it's easier to go, rah, how dare you say that to me? And we all do it. We all do it. All of us humans do it. Because it takes courage to look at ourselves and say, yeah, I need to fucking change this. And I'm doing it all the time. I self-sabotage all the time. And I have to give myself a slap around the face and say, look, Hammersley, you know, you need to fucking get off your ass and do something. You're giving advice to other people. You need to take your own fucking advice. But there are ways to protect yourself energetically and emotionally. One of the simplest, and this is what I do, is to visualize yourself inside a bubble. Imagine like a kind of Zorb ball, a bubble of light. And this is quite funny because a friend of mine the other day said she tried to send me some healing, but she hadn't told me. And she said, I tried to send you this healing, and it just bounced off this bubble. She said it wouldn't get through. And then you shot this like lightning strike hand and said, get off. I found it hilarious. But it does protect you energetically. It's like imagining yourself in this little bubble that is about an arm's stretch away in all directions, and it literally only allows the good shit in. And visualization is so powerful because our mind doesn't know the difference between what we're visualizing and what is actually happening. And everything is energy. Everything is energy. I'm energy, this phone is energy, this table is energy, we're all energy. And it does actually work. You can even go a step further and imagine every single cell in your body surrounded by a circle of white light. But if that's too difficult to start with, just stick to imagining yourself in a circle. The second thing is to work on your self-love, basically, self-value, being kind to yourself. Because when we lack self-worth, we lack self-respect. And we are more likely to tolerate or allow people to treat us like shit, to put it in layman's terms. We don't set as strong boundaries. And again, it goes back to that paradox. When you are able to set strong boundaries, you are less likely to attract people who treat you like negatively. When you are stronger in yourself, emotionally, energetically, you have less energy vampires come to you, because as I said at the beginning, energy vampires are like those vultures, and they can smell weakness a mile off. The more you work on loving yourself, and if that's difficult to start with, start on liking yourself, start on respecting yourself, start on caring yourself, start on treating yourself as you would someone else you care about. The more you work on that, the more you build your sense of self-worth. And the more you build your sense of self-worth, the more self-respect you have. The more self-respect you have, the less tolerant you are of negative people. The less tolerant you are of negative people, the less they swarm in, because they can sense weakness and they will go off and find someone else. It really is kind of as simple as that. But know that when I say simple, doesn't mean easy. Just because something's simple doesn't mean it's easy. But nothing is easy to begin with. Absolutely nothing is easy at the start. So whenever you're struggling and thinking this really isn't easy, nothing is to begin with. Nothing we do. Trying to tie our shoelaces as a child wasn't easy. It is now. So remember that. So yeah, work on your self-love, your self-value. And if you need help with that, I have the perfect mini program that will help you do that, because I had zero self-worth, zero self-esteem, zero self-respect many years ago, didn't like myself. And we have to remember that we set the standard for how other people treat us. We set the standard. So if we treat ourselves like shit, so do everyone else. Simple as that. So do everyone else. The third thing is to remember to own your emotions. Own your emotions. Remember that no matter what someone says or does, we have a choice. And there is that split second, there's that, we've got a second where we notice ourselves do that. And then we can then choose to react in anger, or to get upset or whatever, or to take a few deep breaths, to react with kindness, which that really throws someone off. If someone is being a bitch to you and you react with kindness, it really throws them off. Absolutely throws them off. Or you can walk away. Because when we react, it's like throwing fuel on the fire. Whereas if we react with kindness, it's like throwing water on the fire. And we all have that moment. You know what it's like when someone said that on Facebook and you have that moment before you press send. The same as when someone says something to you and you go to react, you have that moment where you can choose to accept what they say, to get angry at what they say, or, as I say, to just walk away. It's not always that easy, but it is that simple. It is that simple. Remember, no one can make you feel anything. The other thing is, ask yourself, is that person trying to get a reaction? Is that person trying to force you into reacting? Because they're feeling pissed off, they're feeling upset, they're feeling hurt. So they want a good rah. And if you just react with kindness or just walk away, end of story. End of story. The other thing to do is very simple, very beautiful, brings you to a state of inner peace. And that is to sit comfortably with your spine nice and upright. Place either both hands on your heart, or one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Whenever we bring our hands onto our body, it takes us out of our head. Because when we're reacting, we're in our head. We're reacting with the chimp, which is the primitive part of the brain, which is the bit. We need to bring ourselves back into our heart space, into our human, into our self-awareness, that choice. So whenever we place our hands on our body, especially over our heart space, it brings us into contact with our heart center. And we can start feeling instead of just simply reacting, because reacting is you are acting what they've done. So if someone gets rah at you and you get rah back, you're just reacting what they've done. Reacting, acting the same way they've done. So it's just to simply place your hands on your body, on your heart, and focus on your breath. And breathe in and out to a count of 4. So you're literally breathing in, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, and in, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. And you just count that breath in your mind. And what that 4-4 breath does, it brings you into a resonance with your heart. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system. So it brings you down from that reaction, that kind of fight, fright, freeze, fuck you state, into a state of calm. And you focus on that breath, and you focus on the 4-count breath, and you might start to feel a little bit lightheaded because you're getting in more oxygen than maybe you're used to. Because when we're stressed, when we're depressed, when we're anxious, we're not breathing properly. So we're not getting enough oxygen in. And every organ in our body, particularly this one up here, needs plenty of oxygen. And when our brain is starved of oxygen, we don't think clearly. So after you've got that breath, then what you do is you think of someone who you love. Now, it doesn't matter if they're no longer on this physical plane, because you still love them, whether they've passed over or not. So you think of someone you love. It could be, I may think of Armani, my pony, who I lost in May. And it's about just focusing on the energy of love. And you'll feel it like an inner smile, like an inner glow. You'll feel that energy in your body. And after a few moments, once you focus on that energy, when you focus on it's like all your cells are vibrating with that energy of love, then bring to mind someone who loves you unconditionally. Again, it might be someone who's passed over. It might be someone who's no longer here. I may think again of Armani, of him loving me. And again, you focus on that energy. You just feel that energy, because love is something that we are. It's not something we get, because I can think of someone who's not here, who's not around me, and feel that love. So it's not something that someone gives us. It's something that is within us. And when you focus on that energy, one, you'll be vibrating at a higher level. So you're less likely to attract those energy vampires. You lift your mood, and you, what was I about to say? Completely brain fart. Oh, that's right. You bring yourself to a state of peace, of inner peace, because you're no longer going, ah. And what you can also do to expand that a little bit more is to visualize your heart space, your whole like rib cage, filled with like an emerald green light, as if your whole rib cage is filled with emerald green light. And then you can imagine that light expanding out from your heart center like a torchlight expanding out. And at first it kind of like encompasses just those closest to you, maybe those in the same house. And then you can imagine the light expanding further, so it encompasses your neighbors' houses, and then expanding further and further and further, so it encompasses your whole town, your whole county. And when we focus on being more loving, it not only raises our own vibrations, and it also acts as like a kind of protection, because when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling depressed, you are vibrating at a lower level, and that also affects our immune system. That affects our hormonal system. We forget that emotions affect us physically. You know, when we're feeling depressed, that's why we're more likely to catch a cold or catch the flu when we're feeling mentally run down, because those low vibration emotions weaken our immune system. So focusing on love, which I know is hard if you're surrounded by negativity or someone's pissed you off, it's hard, but it's not impossible. And when you do that, not only do you make yourself feel better, you actually affect the people around you. There was studies done a while ago where a group of meditators went into different areas in America where there's like high crime rate, high poverty, that kind of thing. and they met every day for like 6 weeks or something, did an hour's meditation, and no one else really knew about it, but the crime rate dropped in that town. It dropped in the 6 weeks they were there meditating and focusing on sending out loving energy. The crime rate in that town dropped, and it dropped by like a real noticeable amount, by something like 30-40%. So it was a very noticeable drop, and once the group left, the crime rate went up again. So when we work on visualizing that loving energy, we're also having a ripple effect on those around us, and that also acts as a kind of barrier to those energy vampires. Now, I noticed recently, I've been selling some stuff on selling pages on Facebook, and I've noticed so many people leaving unkind, horrible comments on people's posts. And I actually put a separate post on a few of the pages, and we're like, you don't know what that person's going through. If you don't like what someone's selling, fine, no problem. But you don't have to be nasty about it, because that person may be struggling. That person may be struggling financially, emotionally, and they're just trying to sell their stuff. They're just trying to sell something they've made. And you taking the piss, banter, because sense of humor, there's a difference between bullying and having a laugh. I can have a laugh. I've got an epic sense of humor. But there is a big difference. When you're making fun of someone else, that's not sense of humor. That is bullying, especially if that person doesn't want to be made fun of. And I just put up a post and was like, we feel like when we're on a computer, we feel like it's okay to be a bitch to someone else. We feel like it's okay to say these things, whereas you wouldn't go into a shop and say the kind of things these people have been saying. You just wouldn't do it. But we have a choice to react, because I've had posts selling stuff where people have put comments that at one time would have really affected me, at one time would have really knocked me on my ass. Now I can just let it slide off, because I know I had that choice. I had that choice to respond or just to ignore it. But not everyone has got that emotional intelligence. Not everyone has got that self-awareness or that strength to do that. And it's taken me many years to get to that stage where I can just ignore it, because there are people out there who want a reaction. There are people out there who find it amusing being horrible because of their own insecurities, because of their own wounds, because of their own pain. Whatever's going on, it's not right. But when we ignore it and say it's like putting water on the fire instead of adding fuel, if you try and get into a discussion with these people, it just doesn't work. So remember that you do have the power to deal with whatever comes your way. Another tip is to imagine that you have a giant fly swat, and anyone says anything negative or horrible, you imagine just swatting the fuck out of them, swatting them out of the way. And be the light. Be the light. Know that you have the power to allow something to suck your energy or not. Because say these, once you learn your boundaries, once you learn to protect yourself, once you learn to own your emotions, once you learn to kind of react with love and to protect yourself energetically, you are less likely to attract those energy vampires, and they will go and move on to someone else. So I hope this has been of some use to you, and you women who are staying with guys who are making you feel like shit, leave. Because, as I said to someone else earlier, you will be happier on your own than with someone who makes you feel like shit. And that applies to guys as well. If you're with someone who makes you feel like shit and you're staying because you're afraid of being on your own, you're better off on your own. Simple as that. You're better off on your own than being with someone who makes you feel like shit. And when you do leave, it'll be like you didn't realize you've been holding your breath and you'll suddenly go, why the fuck didn't I leave sooner? I promise you, because I've been there. I've done it. I got to the stage where I was like, I'd rather be single for the rest of my fucking life than be in a toxic relationship. Because I'll tell you this now, you deserve more. You deserve better. And you are brave enough to do it on your own, because you're not going to be totally on your own. You've got me and your friends behind you. So enjoy the rest of your day. If anyone wants to hear a little bit more about the Love Yourself Beautiful program or the 90-day program, please just ping me a message. Oh, I have got some exciting news. I've got some live programs coming after Christmas called Resolutions, and I shall be sharing a bit more about that soon. I'm really excited about it, and that's going to be a free one for anyone who wants to join me. If you want to set your new year off on the highest vibe possible, then you're going to want to hear about this. You really are, because I'm really excited about it. So if that sounds like something that you want to know a bit more about, then just say down below and I shall reach out to you. See you soon.